I wonder, do you think that we eventually get to a point where everything that is being done on smart contract, other smart contract blockchains, platforms, whatever you want to call it, it can be done on Bitcoin?
Well, I would say not, no, in the current Bitcoin incarnation, and I can give you an example of something that's not possible on Bitcoin today that is very popular on other blockchains, and that's like the Uniswap style automated market makers. One thing that I hope to bring to Bitcoin someday is the ability to host a market on Bitcoin directly, and the reason for doing this is people commonly talk about Bitcoin as censorship resistant money. And if you can host a market on Bitcoin, that brings censorship resistant financial markets using the censorship resistant money. And I think that's a super compelling use case that we should be thinking about as Bitcoiners, and has been done on other blockchain platforms. It's one of the main selling points for these things. And since we're talking about old 2015 ideas, this is a very old idea of copying things that work in other blockchains and bringing them back over to Bitcoin. Blockstream, the company, which I'm sure most of your listeners have heard of, what the original founding idea was the sidechains white paper. And the idea with sidechains was like, hey, let's go over to other blockchains, implement a new feature, see if it blows up the blockchain, or if it's popular at all, if it has traction as a product. If it does have traction, it is popular, and it's secure to bring back over to Bitcoin, let's bring it back into the Bitcoin main chain. And that seems to be an idea that's not as popular in 2022 as we're recording this podcast compared to the 2015, 2016 era of Bitcoin developers wanting to try things out and bring the successful things over to Bitcoin, ditch the things that aren't successful on that other blockchain and let them die, and let Bitcoin become the one true kind of internet currency and platform to build financial applications off of. And hopefully we can find the will to do that, but I don't know if it's there today in Bitcoin's ecosystem, developer ecosystem specifically.
What do you think needs to change in the developer ecosystem? Do you think the developer ecosystem we need more developers, we need more experimentation? What are some of those constraints or fundamental issues that we have to get past?
Well, I think some of it's a culture thing, and no, this isn't all bad. Like, let's look at the what's the word? Let's steelman their arguments. The people that don't want to change Bitcoin. And there is some merit to this argument, right? If you change Bitcoin, you're inherently introducing risk, which means that something could go bad, and then maybe Bitcoin altogether fails. And that's very scary and something that none of us want. So if you follow that line of thought, well, it's like, well, let's never change Bitcoin then, so nothing ever changes, and Bitcoin will, just exist forever. And maybe that's enough for Bitcoin to do is, fill that role of digital gold, censorship-resistant money that Bitcoiners commonly talk about these days. I would like to have my cake and eat it too, if possible. I'd like Bitcoin to be the censorship-resistant money, along with being capable of hosting financial applications directly on top of it, assuming that those financial applications aren't parasitic to the underlying blockchain. And that's where really the rub is at.
Interesting. Can you explain some of the, maybe on a high level, like what would some of those changes to Bitcoin be in order to get censorship resistant markets directly on Bitcoin?
Yeah. So, you would need some way to deploy like a market that is represented by a UTXO on the Bitcoin network. And that just means it's at a very high level, you can think of it as it's just represented by a Bitcoin address, and you trade against that Bitcoin address. You trade against that Bitcoin address is how to think about it. Bitcoin does require, the ability to, I guess, trying to keep it high level, host that market. And that's something that's lacking today in Bitcoin's technical world compared to things like, Ethereum that allow you to deploy these markets natively to the blockchain. And there also is like fundamental architecture differences between a blockchain like Ethereum and a blockchain like Bitcoin. That's the UTXO versus account model. I don't know if we want to go too far down the rabbit hole to explain what the difference between the two are, but it's just important to note that Bitcoin UTX, the Bitcoin's architecture is just fundamentally different than Ethereum's architecture, which makes it a little bit more tricky to build things like markets on top of. And maybe we would have to, I don't know if we would have to fundamentally rethink Bitcoin's architecture to host some of these markets. But I think it's an interesting design space that I would like to see the Bitcoin developer community take seriously as a problem worth solving, because I don't even think we're at the point where they think it's a problem worth solving. I think it's more of the current sentiment in the Bitcoin developer ecosystem is like Bitcoin's digital gold is never going to be anything more, so stop trying.